right, welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today in the show, we have Anupama Verma. She is a nephrologist and she wrote the Kevin MD article, "This is our shot to end the pandemic." Anupama, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. I'm so excited to be here with you.
We'll get into your article in a little bit, but first off, can you share your story and your journey to where you are today?
Yes. So I'm a board certified nephrologist practicing in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I was born in India and I did my medical training in Nigeria, and then I moved to England and then to Philadelphia. And I did my internal medicine residency at University of Pennsylvania, Penn Presbyterian, and then my fellowship at Lankano, all in the Philadelphia area, and took up my first job in Green Bay in private practice and practiced for 18 years. And eventually, just this past year, we were acquired by a hospital. So I've seen both sides, private practice, and now 1 year almost of hospital-based practice. And I love nephrology, yes. And I think the two interesting things about me that people like to hear about is that I lived on 4 continents, Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. And also that I am the editor-in-chief of the Women in White Coats blog, and that is my passion to get the stories of medicine out there, just like you, Kevin. I think you're a pioneer and we're all following in your footsteps, kind of, but I enjoy telling stories from the medical perspective, because if we don't tell our stories, who will?
Absolutely. And that's what I say as well. We need to share the stories of clinicians behind the closed doors and let the public know what's really going on.
Yes.
Now, from a nephrology standpoint, we're speaking in the middle of January. What are you seeing about how the pandemic affects what you're seeing in the clinic or in the hospital?
I practice out of 3 hospitals, so I work in 3 ICUs. And I want to let people know that, I mean, in medicine, even people don't know that nephrologists are at the front lines of the pandemic. Many of the patients in the COVID ICU develop acute kidney injury or kidney failure and require dialysis. In fact, when we had the epicenter of the crisis in Green Bay, Wisconsin, one of the hardest hit areas in the country, in October, we ran out of dialysis staff. We ran out of dialysis machines to keep patients alive, and filter out the toxins. We ran out of chronic renal replacement therapy machines. We had so many patients, it was overwhelming. So we saw that in the ICU setting. And of course, in the hospital, there were a few cases in the COVID wards of acute kidney injury as well. Most of those got better and went home for the most part. Then in the clinic, we are seeing still some follow-ups of after effects of kidney disease in COVID patients. And they are still struggling to get better from all the effects of the coronavirus. So yeah, we are at the front lines as nephrologists, and we are seeing the devastation that this pandemic has caused.
And I'm a primary care physician, and let's say we see a patient post-hospital discharge for COVID. Are there any kidney-related effects that we in primary care need to look out for?
Yes. Well, one is ATN, which recovers pretty quickly. The other is some of them may not recover due to clots. As you know, COVID predisposes to clotting, and that happens in the kidneys. Usually by then they're really sick and may not get better from their kidney disease or even from the virus. But yeah, I would avoid at least nephrotoxins, be wary of how you treat the patients with antibiotics or other drugs that can affect the kidney further, like NSAIDs. So really, it's mostly acute kidney injury from ATN and interstitial nephritis. If it's from thromboembolic events, they're prone to clotting. That's another thing to be watchful for. Yes, but I would refer to a nephrologist early so that we can, manage the side effects from kidney disease as well and prepare for the future.
So let's transition now into your Kevin MD article. This is our shot to end the pandemic. Now, for those who didn't read that article, can you just walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it?
as soon as the vaccine came out, as we have all been keeping a close eye, and the medical community and the world in general was so excited that the vaccine is here. And now not only one, we have 3 potential vaccines. We have the Pfizer and the Moderna, and now the AstraZeneca is also coming out and all over the world. So, but then I was hearing in my medical circle, some people who would not take the vaccine, even some patients and some doctors and some nurses. And that just shocked me. I was like, this is what we're waiting for. How even people could even think in the medical community that they would wait and see. So that prompted me to write that this is our shot to end this pandemic, and I didn't even know there was a hashtag going around saying this is our shot. Doctors started it somewhere in California, I think. And so that just became my article. I said, I have to write something about this. And I took the first shot by then, and now I even have the second shot. And I just wanted to clear misinformation for everyone.
And when you talk to your medical colleagues or other healthcare workers, whether they're nurses or other healthcare staff in a hospital, what are some of the concerns they express about the vaccine that you're hearing?
Well, some of them say we're too young. What if we get autoimmune diseases after? And then some of them say I have allergies or mild, seasonal allergies. Or some will say, I want to wait and choose whether I should take the Pfizer or the Moderna. And, the hospitals are only supplying one, which they're both equally effective. They're both safe, equally safe. And so I was like, whatever they bring on, I'm rolling up my sleeve and taking the shot. And so I have managed to convince some people. Some patients tell me I get the flu shot, but I'm not going to take this one because it's new. And then I have to convince them that the mRNA technology has been researched for 20 years now. In fact, I talk about that in the article too. And the technology is not new. Yes, it has been applied to this vaccine urgently, expedited with significant generous funding, but the technology behind it has been researched in the University of Michigan, everywhere, Cornell, everywhere they have been researchers in LA, San Diego Institute of Vaccines researching this for 20 years. So the technology is not new. It may seem like it's new, but it's not. And even for reactions, most have been safe, and very few people had severe allergic reactions. But my takeaway is for those people is that, I have been in 18 years a nephrologist. I have practiced in 3 different ICUs and hospitals since I became an attending. And I have never seen anyone die from a vaccine yet. But in the 9 months that this pandemic has raged, I have seen hundreds of people wheeled out from coronavirus. So, I mean, you have to weigh the implications of that.
So you mentioned about some potential healthcare resistance that you've encountered. What are you seeing in social media, on whether it's on your blog or on your Facebook channels, Twitter channels? What are you seeing about the response to the vaccine on your social media circles?
Yes. Well, most people are very excited, and some are actually waiting. When can we get ours? When can we get this shot? Why is it not available yet? And of course, the distribution has been a problem. As we all know, it's not. And that's one problem, that many of my friends are waiting. Their elderly parents are waiting. And my patients are calling in the clinic and saying, why are we not getting it? Many of my patients are octogenarians and have chronic kidney disease, which predisposes them to coronavirus in the first place. And many are transplant patients who are very high risk of death from COVID-19. So these people are waiting, and that is one urgency. The other side is the vaccine people who say they will not get it. They're going to wait and see over time. And even some nurses in the offices, my friends tell me, my other doctor friends tell me that I'm not going to take it. They want to wait and see. So yeah, it's a mixture of both.
We're talking to Anupama Verma. She is a nephrologist, and she wrote the Kevin MD article, "This is our shot to end a pandemic." Now, you mentioned that you had convinced some previously skeptical vaccine recipients, and you convinced them to get the shot. Now, tell me, what's some advice that you could give fellow clinicians whenever they encounter resistance to the COVID vaccines? What are some of the tips and techniques that you use to convince some people who were previously skeptical?
Yes, one of them is that we are not going to be injecting live vaccine and live virus in you, because that's another concern. So you cannot get coronavirus infection from the vaccine. The spike protein that is used to make the mRNA particle uses to encodes and protects you, causes your body to produce antibodies, is later discarded by the body. So it doesn't even stick around to invade your DNA or cause problems down the road. It's very unlikely to stick around and cause problems down the road. And vaccines are safe. They are so safe that we don't even think of them until you get the disease. I mean, we've all been vaccinated, most of us in childhood, and we are living all alive to tell the tale. And vaccines are so safe that we take them for granted. I come from a country where I have seen cases of polio where they were not vaccinated. I have seen, the devastation caused by being crippled from polio and other diseases like diphtheria and tetanus. People die from those, rabies. I have practiced in Africa. I've lived in India. I mean, I have seen the devastation that not being vaccinated can cause. And I feel, unfortunately, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see that. Learn and listen to the experts. I mean, I did a little bit of research, yes, and I do have a scientific background being a physician, and my father being a microbiologist. That's all we talked about in the house. But I did my research still, and I just rolled up my sleeve because I trust the experts, trust the doctors who have done the work for us. I go to an electrician when I need some electrical work done in my house. I go to a painter or a plumber, and I don't try to do those things myself for the most part. I mean, they're small projects. So I just trust the experts.
I've had the Pfizer vaccine myself, and I know that there are some side effects associated with the vaccines that is likely a result of an immunogenic response. Describe some of the effects that people are feeling, which are considered to be totally normal.
Yes, and I also had those effects with my second dose. My first dose was completely almost painless, and I basically had little soreness for 3 hours, and that was it. And my second dose, luckily it was on a weekend that I was not working, because I was completely myalgias, I felt chills, and I felt feverish. I didn't really have a fever, but I felt very feverish, and I couldn't get out of bed. And then I did take some Tylenol, and honestly, after 10 hours, it was gone, and I was fine the next day. So, and that's just your body's immunogenic response, as you said. And that's, in fact, I was happy I had it, because I felt, okay, my body's working to produce antibodies. And I think that I felt happy that I was doing that, actually, even though it wasn't fun to be feeling like I had the flu almost. Yes.
And that's the approach I take as well. Like, I had the same myalgias, had a little bit of low-grade fever, which completely resolved after 24 hours. And really, that's just your body telling you that it is generating the proper immune response. So my final question, Anupama, what is your take-home message you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
Yes. My take-home message, again, is trust in science and the experts. Take the shot. It's our chance to go back to normal life, to have a semblance of visiting our elderly parents, grandparents without fear, and living our lives. It's a chance to open up the economies and rebuild, businesses, and go back to what we have before. Take the shot, trust the experts, and everything will be okay. I want everyone to be positive.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. It was a pleasure.